WNBA finals. And so I'll leave it there. I mean, I'm just obviously disheartened. You know, I'm a human too. I have a family. I have 2 kids who are devastated by these comments. And so all I'll say is just, you know.
Behind closed doors at the highest levels of professional basketball, a quiet panic is unfolding, one that could permanently alter the landscape of women's sports. It's been sparked by a single player who has realized the full magnitude of her own power. Rumors are rapidly circulating that WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert recently convened an emergency, off-the-books meeting with key league executives and franchise owners. The agenda was focused entirely on a brewing crisis no one wants to address publicly. Whispers from inside the league suggest that Clark, the undeniable golden goose who single-handedly resurrected the financial viability of the WNBA, has laid down a strict set of non-negotiable conditions for her participation in the 2026 season. This isn't a routine contract negotiation. It isn't a polite request for better locker rooms. This is an unprecedented power move by a generational talent who knows exactly how much leverage she holds over an establishment that desperately needs her. The timing of this alleged ultimatum is no coincidence. The WNBA Players Association is already positioned to opt out of its current collective bargaining agreement, turning the 2026 season into a ticking time bomb for the league's front office. Clark brought millions of new viewers, sold-out arenas, and staggering television ratings to a league that had struggled for decades to break into the mainstream. But the honeymoon phase is officially over. After a rookie year filled with relentless scrutiny, physical punishment, and intense psychological pressure, she is reportedly refusing to return to the same chaotic environment without massive systemic change. Boardroom executives are sweating, because they understand that if she walks away, even for a single season, the multi-billion-dollar house of cards built on her back could collapse overnight. To understand why that emergency meeting was called, you have to look at what she endured on the hardwood. The physical toll during her inaugural campaign was alarming. From the moment she stepped onto a professional court, she became a target for veteran players who felt overshadowed, resulting in hip checks, late hits, and aggressive closeouts that often crossed the line from competitive basketball into outright hostility. Fans watched in disbelief as she was knocked to the floor night after night while referees appeared to swallow their whistles, treating blatant targeting as a twisted form of rookie initiation instead of penalizing dangerous play. Now, insiders claim that one of her firmest conditions for returning in 2026 involves a sweeping overhaul of referee accountability and player safety protocols. She is allegedly demanding transparent reviews for flagrant fouls and severe escalating penalties for repeat offenders who engage in non-basketball plays designed to cause injury. The message to the commissioner's office is crystal clear. She will no longer serve as a human punching bag for a league that profits from her presence but refuses to protect her physical well-being. This isn't about softer treatment. It's about professional officiating standards that prevent a career-ending injury to the athlete generating the league's revenue. The front office understands the dilemma. Asking referees to fundamentally change how the game is called risks alienating veteran players who pride themselves on the WNBA's gritty, physical identity. Yet the reality is unavoidable. An unprotected superstar is a liability. If the league cannot guarantee a safe working environment, they may soon be trying to sell tickets without their biggest attraction. And while the physical punishment pushed this situation to the brink, it represents only part of the deeper dysfunction driving her unprecedented demand. The financial disconnect between what she generates and what she earns has created a toxic undercurrent that is now boiling over. When the league secured a historic media rights deal worth over $2 billion, everyone understood that the surge in viewership was directly tied to the audience she brought in. Yet despite being the undisputed face of the league and the driving force behind those numbers, she remained bound to a rookie-base salary of roughly $76,000, a figure so low it became a national talking point. Speculation is now intensifying that her camp has drawn a firm line ahead of upcoming CBA negotiations, demanding a fundamental restructuring of the revenue-sharing model that heavily favors ownership. This isn't about a modest raise. She is reportedly pushing for a compensation system directly tied to the revenue and ratings individual players generate, a model that would dismantle the traditional wage structure the league has relied on for decades. That demand has sent shockwaves through ownership circles, because conceding to it would require a complete economic shift, potentially forcing transparency around profits owners have long resisted sharing. Her camp understands the numbers. She drives merchandise sales, boosts ticket prices, and elevates television ratings at a scale some entire franchises cannot match. And they are no longer willing to watch the league absorb the surplus while she plays for a fraction of her market value. The threat is simple and terrifying. If the financial structure is not modernized to reflect her true worth, then when the 2026 season tips off, she may have no reason to continue enriching a system that refuses to compensate her accordingly. Now, the battle lines aren't just being drawn over dollar signs and bank accounts. The fight has spilled into the terrifying logistical nightmares she faced every time she stepped outside her front door. The chaotic, heavily publicized rollout of the league's charter flight program exposed just how unprepared the WNBA was for the level of fame she brought during her rookie season. The painfully slow transition from commercial flights to private travel left her and her teammates vulnerable to aggressive mobs, stalkers, and chaotic airport scenes that felt more like security failures than professional sports travel. Reports indicate that one of the most non-negotiable items on her 2026 list is a legally binding, ironclad guarantee of Tier 1 private travel logistics and elite personal security, fully funded and managed by the league without exception. She is allegedly refusing to ever step foot in a commercial terminal again or stay in substandard accommodations that compromise her safety and peace of mind. The league's initial hesitation to provide full-time private jets for all teams was rooted in cost-cutting. But her meteoric rise created a new reality, one where trying to save money could result in catastrophe. She is demanding NBA-level logistical sophistication. Dedicated security personnel traveling with her at all times, ensuring she is insulated from overwhelming public exposure. This places the commissioner in a brutal position. Funding that level of security and private travel requires millions in operational costs, something smaller market owners are fiercely resisting. But the alternative is far worse. Forcing the most famous female athlete in the world to navigate public spaces without adequate protection. A gamble that could end in tragedy or a devastating lawsuit. And while the front office scrambles to calculate those costs, another war is quietly brewing inside the locker rooms. The sheer audacity of a young player attempting to dictate league-wide policy has triggered a deeply guarded backlash from the old guard of the WNBA. For nearly 3 decades, veteran players grinded in relative obscurity, playing overseas in punishing international leagues just to supplement their income, flying coach, fighting for every incremental concession from ownership. Now they are watching a second-year player effectively hold the commissioner's office hostage, demanding luxury travel, officiating reforms, and massive economic restructuring before she has even reached her prime. Whispers from inside multiple locker rooms suggest that several high-profile veterans, and even some seasoned head coaches, are furious at the idea of the league bending to her demands. They believe it disrespects the foundational players who built the WNBA from the ground up. That resentment frequently surfaced during her rookie season through hard fouls and icy post-game exchanges. But behind closed doors, it is evolving into something far more dangerous, a political faction within the Players' Association. Some veterans are reportedly pressuring union leadership to reject any CBA proposal that heavily favors superstar compensation over rank-and-file players, actively trying to dilute her leverage to preserve the traditional hierarchy. This leaves her fighting a two-front war, against cautious league executives on one side and resentful veterans on the other. The commissioner fears that appeasing this young star could trigger open rebellion within the league. But pride alone won't pay the bills or satisfy television networks. And what the old guard may be underestimating is this: she does not need their approval, because she holds a trump card that could render their resistance irrelevant. The most terrifying element for the WNBA front office is the rapidly emerging threat of alternative professional leagues eager to claim their crown jewel. Behind the scenes, the sports landscape is shifting. Wealthy investors are launching lucrative ventures like the Unrivaled League, built specifically to offer massive payouts for shorter time commitments. Rumors suggest that international consortiums and domestic startups have quietly approached her camp with guaranteed contracts worth tens of millions for limited exhibition schedules or high-stakes tournament play. If the WNBA refuses to meet her conditions on safety, revenue sharing, and security for 2026, she possesses the unprecedented ability to walk away and accept an enormous payday elsewhere. Unlike many veterans who rely entirely on league contracts, her endorsement portfolio with brands like Nike, Gatorade, and State Farm ensures she will remain extraordinarily wealthy whether she plays in the WNBA or not. That leverage is pure power. She holds the nuclear codes to the league's future, and she is making it unmistakably clear. She is not afraid to use them if she believes she is being undervalued or left unprotected. The thought of her taking her millions of dedicated fans, her sold-out arenas, and her massive television ratings to a rival startup league is enough to make WNBA ownership physically uneasy. They understand that without her driving the narrative, the massive television contracts currently being negotiated could be restructured or outright canceled, plunging the league back into financial uncertainty. That looming threat of defection is what forced top executives into a state of genuine panic, triggering closed-door summits where survival was the only item on the agenda. Inside the emergency meeting reportedly called by Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, the atmosphere was suffocating, heavy with the realization that control of the league's narrative had slipped away. Executives from ESPN, Amazon, and NBC, companies that had just committed billions to broadcast rights, were allegedly demanding ironclad assurances that their golden attraction would be on the court and fully engaged in 2026. Engelbert, already bruised by prior PR controversies and criticism over her handling of league tensions, found herself cornered with no room to bluff. Corporate sponsors, focused solely on the engagement metrics she generates, made it clear that their continued financial backing is directly tied to her presence. That reality stripped the commissioner of meaningful leverage. Owners of smaller market teams pushed back, arguing they could not absorb the escalating costs of elite security and upgraded travel logistics, only to be confronted with the brutal math. If she sits out 2026 or takes her talent elsewhere, the financial fallout would not just sting. It could force struggling franchises to fold within years. Behind the scenes, the commissioner's office is reportedly scrambling to construct a quiet framework that addresses her demands for safety, revenue, and logistical protection without publicly appearing to surrender to a single player. It is a nearly impossible public relations tightrope. The hard truth everyone in that room is being forced to accept is this: she has outgrown the league that drafted her, and the league must evolve to meet her standards, or watch its historic momentum evaporate overnight. As the dust settles from those frantic boardroom discussions, the entire sports world waits, watching to see who blinks first in this escalating game of chicken. This is no longer just a basketball dispute. It represents a historic shift in the power structure of professional women's sports, a moment when undeniable talent meets unapologetic leverage. For the first time, a female athlete is wielding systemic, league-altering influence typically associated with icons like Michael Jordan or LeBron James, refusing to settle for the bare minimum from an establishment built on her brilliance. Her reported ultimatums for 2026 are a blunt wake-up call to a system that believed it could monetize her popularity while minimizing her safety and financial value. By drawing firm lines around officiating accountability, revenue restructuring, and elite security logistics, she is not merely advocating for comfort. She is dragging a professional league into a modern business reality, whether it welcomes the shift or not. The veteran resistance and boardroom anxiety are simply the growing pains of a sport being forced to abandon its small market mentality and operate like the billion-dollar enterprise it claims to be. As the CBA opt-out deadline approaches and tensions escalate, the responsibility rests squarely with the Commissioner's office. Find a solution before the damage becomes irreversible. Because one defining question now hangs over the future of the league. Will the WNBA swallow its pride and reinvent itself to retain its brightest star? Or will its refusal to adapt cost it the greatest opportunity it has ever been given,